Okay, we are continuing the shiurim Daas Tevunos here in the Ezrat Nashim of Zichron Avraham and Ramot with David Goodwin, and as always these shiurim are the nishmas and the schus for Daniella Sheina bas Yehoshua Falik. So we started getting into yesterday some very complicated territory in the Sefer Daas Tevunos, and I really wanted to kind of pause for a moment to take stock of where we're holding. And to try to explain the concept that we learned yesterday, and then to move forward. So let's just start from the very beginning of where the Ramchal took us. We start with Hashem wants the opportunity to do good in order to, again, in order to give us a metaphor to understand it, in order to fully actualize Hashem's own goodness or His potential for goodness. So He needs to have a recipient, and in order for that goodness to be the best type of goodness, it has to be earned, and therefore there has to be a few ingredients here. There has to be a recipient. There has to be a playing field, right? There has to be a format, a place where this recipient will operate, and then there has to be some sort of rules. There has to be some sort of a thing for this recipient to do in order to earn his reward. Now, what we have to appreciate about this is that this could have been done in an infinite number of ways. If Hashem wanted to set up a chess game, and the recipient was the chess player, the playing field was the chessboard, and the rules to be followed and to achieve were the rules of chess, he could have done that. He could have set up a basketball game. He could have set up anything that would have created a challenge that would give a recipient, any being, an opportunity to work, to struggle and earn something. That would have filled Hashem's plan. And there's an infinite number of ways that He could have done that, and maybe in fact has, for all we know. In other words, that we have no idea. But Hashem has a system in mind in which to create a place for an entity to struggle and work and earn, and to achieve that reward that will become theirs. And what is that reward? That reward is a complete and total connection with God. Why? Because, again, God being the ultimate and best goodness that there is, and His desire to bestow the best type of goodness that there is, well, that must be Him Himself. So the whole structure is a playing field for a being to struggle in order to receive his reward, which is what? Which is a full connection to God. Now, the way that the Ramchal explains it is that Hashem chose, in His wisdom, and again, these are things that we can't question, well, why did He choose this system versus another system? That's, that's breaking the walls of the metaphor. Right? Hashem chose that the struggle would be to see Hashem's yichud in His creation. That's the struggle. The playing field is planet Earth, and anywhere that humans can see or reach that impacts them and their thought. The recipient are human beings, mankind. The rules of the game are the lack that Hashem created in the world, and the Torah and the mitzvos that He gave us in order to learn how to fill in that lack. And the reward is a connection to Hashem. What the Ramchal now takes this to the next step is as follows. If the whole point that Hashem set up is that there needs to be a struggle to see Hashem's yichud, that is what He decided. The struggle of man should be, in which he gains his reward, etc., and sets this whole system in place, is to see and find Hashem's yichud in this world. So therefore, by definition, there has to be a place for that struggle to exist, which means there has to be the opportunity for a person to see this world in such a way that there is no God, in order for him to look at that and say, no, this is not showing that there is not a God, even though this looks like there's no God. I believe with a full faith that there is a God, and that this is God's deeds also. And like he quoted this pasuk several times, Ani Hashem ose tov ubore ra, I also do bad. Ani Hashem ose kol eila, I do everything. So the whole struggle of man, the whole point of man being here, again, to earn his reward, to connect himself to Hashem, is to exist in this world, see the world, and see through it and say, even though it looks like there's no God here, I believe there is a God. Now, he explains this idea as follows. If the point of everything was to show Hashem's kindness or Hashem's wisdom or Hashem's strength, this is this idea he was speaking about yesterday, so there would be no necessity for us to see the flip side in order to see that trait of Hashem, right? Hashem, who can do everything, that shows his strength. We don't need to see weakness. Hashem would be kind to everyone. We would see that. If that was the point of everything, then Hashem would just show the kindness and we would need to see the kindness. But that's not what Hashem is here to try to show us or to challenge us to see. Hashem is challenging us to see his yichud. And in order for us to know what his yichud is, we have to be able to see the possibility of what it is not. And that is evil. That's Ra. And the existence of all Ra in the world. Now, I was going to explain this on a much deeper level, and that it's not just this, and it's doing many other things, and it has many other functions in the scheme of things. But as far as the structure of the struggle of man is concerned, the lack that we see in the world, the chisaron, the lack of shleimus that we experience, is here to show us the possibility, the option of no God, so that we can say, no, we're going to deny that, rather than denying God, right? Those are the two options, to deny God or to deny the evil, right? And say, no, it really is all God. And that he refers this idea as shlilas hara, a shedding of the bad. Now, what does that mean? It means we see something that is bad in this world, and rather than ascribing a force to it and saying, this must not be God, there must be some other force in the world, there must be something challenging Hashem's yichud, we say no. Even this bad is part of the picture, part of the package, part of the parcel of Hashem, and as we'll see, of course, that means that it is inherently good, or that it is leading to good, and it's playing a role, etc., as is going to develop in the whole rest of the Sefer. But I just felt it was important to bring us sort of up to speed of where we're holding now, because he's explaining here a very delicate concept, this idea of why we need to be able to experience Ra in order to be sholel it, in order to be able to say no, that is not Hashem, as opposed to all the other traits of Hashem. V'al titi lomar. Now we're continuing in paragraph Lamed Ches 38. V'al titi lomar. Don't make a mistake to say shegam laseis be'er lachachma tzarich laharos hasichlus. That in order to show, in order to exhibit wisdom, you would also need to see foolishness. V'chein levarach chasidus tzarich laharos achzarius. In order to show piety, you would also need to show cruelty. Because of this idea that you can only tell something from its opposite. Again, we can't, any of these positive elements of Hashem, we can't understand them, like he explained this earlier, right? They're infinite, we can't possibly grasp Hashem's wisdom and Hashem's kindness. Go back a few shiurim if you don't recall this idea, what we're talking about, because they're infinite. The only thing we can grasp is this idea of yichud. The evil and cruelty are not necessary in order to define piety and goodness. But when we incorporate all of these other midos under the umbrella of yichud, which yichud is again the shlila, the negating of anything that is not Hashem. So anything that we witness that is a lack of kindness is not there to show us what kindness is versus what kindness isn't. It's there to show us Hashem is versus Hashem isn't. Kulam nichnasim tachas gedra yichud shehu shlilas kol mashu zulaso v'kulam min yasug azeh yichashvu u'mi shirotz lav and tzarich shlo ye'arav minei sug echad in minei sug acher. If you really want to understand this, you can't mix these two things up. You can't confuse seeking out Hashem's yichud and trying to understand yichud in the same way that you try to understand Hashem's kindness. Because again, Hashem's kindness is not defined by what it's not, whereas yichud is only defined by what it's not. Says the neshama. Zeh vadai lametes. Zeh vadai, this is for sure. Shavana tuluya rak b'havchana v'chol asugim u'minayam tzarech lavdilam zeh mizeh kedei lahavin ha'inyanam. Okay, he says, of course, you have to be able to separate these things. The neshama says you have to be able to differentiate between the various traits and the various midos if you want to understand each one. Vinyan atoldos anolados mehem, as well as the various consequences of each one. V'alfa pisha machshava helyona ein darka kedai b'nei adam. And even though Hashem's master plan, Hashem's mindset is not something that like the way that man thinks, that we can make these types of distinctions. But of course we need to speak the way people speak and try our best to understand it that way. Okay, so in Mem, which we'll see next time, Meretz Hashem, paragraph 40. So now the Seichel is going to continue, explaining this further and deeper. What this idea of chisaron, of lack and shleimus is, and the roles that they play, and what we're doing over here.